Most people think a high GPA comes from late nights at the library. They believe it's about being the smartest person in the room. But the truth is, my Magna Cum Laude degree wasn't earned through studying. It was earned through architecture. I'm Lisa Freefeather, and before I ever stepped into a classroom, I mapped out my entire 4-year destiny on a single piece of paper. I'm going to show you the project managing dream system I used to graduate on my own terms and how you can use the exact principle to build your life. This video breaks down the full story of how I negotiated with reality and won. I almost didn't make it to college. I'm the first person in my family who completed a 4-year degree. And so no one in my home could actually help me on this journey and tell me what to expect. I did the best that I could with the things I learned from my school as well. I applied to some colleges, paid for those applications. With my after school job, I bought a word processor. I was able to type the applications. Yes, I am aging myself, but that was the technology we had then. See, I had this expectation. Movies and TV told me that when I turned 16, I would get a car and that there was a college fund waiting for me. Well, I was sadly mistaken. By the time I turned 16, there was no car. In fact, I actually went and got brochures from my parents for Vespa. I was like, okay, if I can't get a car, I can get an Italian moped. Yeah, that didn't happen either. I think finally they just ignored me until or I don't know what they did to get me to stop talking about it. But I wasn't blind to what was happening in my environment either. Now, let's fast forward to completing my high school, getting my high school diploma, completing my high school journey. There was no college fund, no promise at the end of it. And as a matter of fact, my mother was very resistant to giving me any of her documents that would help me get financial aid. I have since worked through that with her and bless she's on the other side, but that was the moment of truth for me. That was a moment that I recognized that I was fundamentally on my own to ensure my future, to go the way I wanted it to go. The truant officers weren't going to come after my parents. I fulfilled and they fulfilled the state's obligation that I complete my high school education, and everything else was on me. Boy, was I surprised, and I felt I was shocked and disappointed and angry, to be honest with you. I was angry because the world broke its promise, didn't have this expectation the way I was told that life would go. And so I'm really, really grateful that one of my sister's boyfriend went to local college and went to university like locally and encouraged me to do so. Gave me some tips and pointed me in directions. And so I spent the summer scrambling to start college in the fall. I had to scramble because I had to figure out how I was going to fund it and all of the other details in between. And so this was the start of my taking radical ownership of my life and my destiny. So what I did was I took the advice and the coaching from my sister's boyfriend, and I went to my local college and I did all of the things. And when I registered, I got like a student handbook that was pretty thick. It was compact. I read it from cover to cover. I read the class descriptions. I read what was the requirements for the degree that I was pursuing, how many credits I would need to complete. I read everything about conduct, everything that was in that bulletin, I read. And then I took a piece of paper, cut it to size of the bulletin, and stick that page inside of the bulletin based off of the classes and the description and how many credits that I needed to complete. I broke those up into quarters, into fours, right? Because, well, 4 years and 2 semesters each a year. I broke that up. I broke up the 4 years, and I already knew that wintertime, most people hibernate. I live in a cold region. And so I would tend to bulk up a little bit more on my fall credits. And then I would do the bare minimum for spring. And I would make sure that the kinds of classes that I also selected help support coming out of hibernation season, right? And so I did that. And that was one of the ways in which I took full ownership and sovereignty over my college education. And why I did that was because every year I had to apply for financial aid. And I didn't know if, to be honest with you, I didn't have 4 years guaranteed. I had to take it year by year, and I had to be very strategic and smart about seeing to completing my degree. Okay. So now the other thing that I did was I made sure that I was successful in my classes. Now, I do have a bit of experience of a system that I didn't realize was a system until I realized it was a system. And I thought back to 8th grade junior high school, where I sat close to my science teacher's desk. And I remember one time she was about to prepare the class for an exam, and she saw my notes and she asked me if she could see my notes. So, yeah, she actually prepared the class for the exam based off my notes because she used this projector where there were these slides that projected. So instead of using that, she used my notes. Yeah. I also believe to this day, side note, that she's the reason why I received the Attorney General's Triple C award. And only 2 people per junior high school receives this award. So I knew that I had a system for taking copious notes. So what I did was I would go to my classes, I would write, and I was so meticulous about my handwriting, but taking copious notes in that kind of setting with people who I no longer knew, right? Because I went through all of my education with kids that I recognized. Even when I got to high school, when it got a little bigger, there's still kids that I recognize from junior high school and from elementary school. So now I'm on a college campus. I don't know anyone. I have to make sure that I'm taking copious notes. So I will write it quickly, and it would maybe be as messy. For me, my messy might be some people are impressed by my messy, but I would then go to the library and I'd rewrite those notes. The other thing that I did, I didn't go to school during the time of cell phones. So what I had was my college lanyard, my ID around my neck, and an index card. And every day I would write out my schedule on this index card with the time. I would even include when I was having lunch and everything else. And I was working during this time as well, because that's how I paid for my books. All my tuition, I got covered. So I had to apply every year, of course. So I had this around my neck, and that helped me stay on track. Now, with laying this all out, what I was then able to do was bypass, if you will, my academic advisor. What are you advising me on? I already had the plan out. I wasn't confused. And one of the internal things that I discovered is that, professors, they have their careers as well. They have their ideas of classes. And this was the first time that I saw firsthand. So in my discipline, one of my professors wanted to introduce this new class. However, she had to have a minimum number of students who would register. And so the campaign went. Now, my poor peers who didn't have a plan, they were held captive. I remember one semester walking in, excusing myself to have my advisor sign off on my classes so I could go register. And I remember this one young lady, her name was Grace. She looked like Blink twice because she needed help. And I was just like, sorry, can't help you. And those are the people who got caught up in registering for classes to satisfy the bare minimum that these professors needed to have it happen. I had my plans all laid out, so I got my signature and I bounced and I registered. Now, I will tell you, even with the best laid out plans, there are still obstacles that can occur. So, one semester, I took a bunch of auditory heavy classes I didn't even recognize that they were. And so a pull on the auditory senses was an overload for me. I had taken an advanced Spanish class, I'd taken a music class, and I had a voice and diction class. I dropped the advanced Spanish class because I had already taken the minimum 101 and I wanted to pursue and take the 102. Now I dropped the class, but I forgot to put something in its place. So my little system is humming along until I get to the final semester and they're like, oh, you're going to need to do summer school. Like, summer school? I will not be doing summer school. I am going to complete. This is not going to be just ceremonial that I'm walking across the stage in June and I'm coming back during the summer. I'm walking across the stage in June and I am done. Remember what I said. I had to reapply and my financial aid wasn't always guaranteed. And besides which, I had a strategy. I'm completing in exactly 4 years. I do know that there's some degrees and situations where people do not complete exactly in 4, but I was completing in 4. So what that meant was that I had to go before the academic board. I had to go to my department chair, and I also had to talk to the department that awarded my financial aid. So to talk to these 3 different departments or get these 3 different departments together to agree on this exception to allow me to exceed the maximum number of credits. The maximum was 18 and I needed 22 to complete the final semester. So I got all of my talking points together to appeal. I had up until that point had been on the dean's list 5 times out of 7. So I was on a dean's list for 5 semesters out of 7. I can't recall what else I did, but I had those points going to my favor and they approved it. I walked out of the boardroom with not just with permission, but with proof. Proof that when you understand a system, you build your own blueprint, you advocate for yourself from a place of sovereign power, reality will bend to meet you. This system, this way of thinking is how I project manage dreams. That's how I graduated Magna Cum Laude. In fact, I was awarded who's who in colleges and universities by the time I completed my degree. So my 4-year journey started with one decision: to read the rule book, draw out my own map. I didn't have a guide. I had to create the system for myself. But you don't have to. This is the work I do now. I project manage dreams for powerful women who are ready to stop following the rules and start writing their own. And your journey starts in the exact same place mine did, with knowing your unique personal map. That's why I created the Birth Chart GPS. It's a simple, powerful guide that walks you step by step through finding the core architecture of your own soul's blueprint. Your sun, your moon, your rising sign, and all the important lunar nodes that form your soul's compass. It's not about being an astrologer. It's about being the architect of your own life. And you can't build a masterpiece without knowing your foundational coordinates. So, if you're ready to take the first step to find your unique starting point so you can start architecting your destiny, the link to the Birth Chart GPS is in the description below. So go grab it now. Let's start building. Until the next time, thank you for watching. Bye for now.
Lisa.